Gavin, please tell me about yourself. What makes you happy?
Well, I'm Gavin, I'm 20. I work in outdoor education for an amazing organisation. I usually live on a property called Barambie, that's where the name of the ride came about from, and it's on the Snowy River in the East Gippsland region of Victoria. I'm really passionate about getting outdoors, doing big solo adventures, so going out by myself for a long time, mostly hikes and bike rides. And what makes me happy is getting out there in the wild places that we still have left in the world and sharing out with special people, helping them sort of understand the intrinsic sort of benefits of being outdoors in all the, in the wilderness.
Yeah, that's incredibly important, isn't it? Okay, let's talk about your work as a tool for change. What are your projects about and what's their mission?
Yeah, so currently I'm a wild traveller ambassador with beards on, which is on my shirt here. You might be able to see it. And I'm doing a ride called Barambie to Byron. It's a 2,000 kilometre ride on my bike. It's a green inspired ride, so I'm riding with all solar panels. My panniers, the bags on my bike are reused. They've been used about 30 years ago by my friend's parents. And Beards On's committed to starting a conversation about conservation. So I'm trying to combat climate change on a broad scale, just get people talking about it, get it a bit destigmatized so people actually are aware of it and want to make change. And on a much smaller scale, here at home, I'm from the country and I've seen what's happened, the devastating effects of coal seam gas and coal mining. So I'm writing to support and promote everything that's going on in Gloucester with AGL's coal seam gas wells there, and also everything that Whitehaven Coal's doing out at Maules Creek, which is in Narrabri, which is in near Narrabri, in northwest New South Wales. Yeah, that's what it's all about.
And Gavin, what's the change you want to make in your community?
The change I want to make in my community, I guess, is to destigmatise climate change, to get everybody starting a conversation about conservation, get everybody aware of what's happening, the actual impacts that are going to happen, and to promote, I guess, people to take action and realise that all the small things they can do in their own life can really affect things on a much, much broader scale. And you know, sometimes people feel powerless about it, they put their heads in the sand, and what it's really about is getting people thinking for themselves and taking up their own action like I've done. Stood up and said, I'm not happy with this, I really want to make a difference, and they totally can.
And what is the greatest challenge you have faced so far on working towards that change?
I guess the greatest challenge so far working towards that change is current governmental policy. You know, it's all up at the top end of town at the moment. I don't really care what party it is. I don't really care, as long as they take some sort of action on environmental policy, carbon emissions, and you know, the renewable energy target was something that was really good, and that's gone down the drain. So I just want to see people taking more control of, I guess, the environment, because there's not going to be any economy which they're so focused on if the world's gone. Like, there's not going to be anything. So I think it should be a lot more in the forefront of a lot more governments' minds. That's pretty hard. I guess generally the general stigma surrounding it, people don't want to acknowledge it because it's a big scary thing in the world. You know, within our generation we're going to see huge changes, you know, rising water levels, huge droughts, you know, all the extreme weather events that come with climate change. So that's what my main challenge is.
And how can we all participate in that change? What is the best way to support your work, your projects or your causes?
So ways that you can support my ride, I guess spreading it on social media. So it's all about starting a conversation about conservation, as I've said, so just spreading the word, making people aware. There's also, you can donate to my ride, that would help a whole heap as well, help the bushland regeneration projects, doing programs to engage schools in these issues, and also just standing up yourself, doing your own individual action, whether that's divesting from a bank that has fossil fuels. That's a really effective way to do it, and I've done that myself. Or you can write to your local parliamentarian, or you can do something. You can become a wild traveller ambassador with beards on and stand up and start a conversation about conservation, get everyone thinking about it. There's a whole host of little things you can do. Everyone's aware of like all the little things you can do at home, using less, you know, turning off the lights, just consuming less. Definitely. Riding a bike, that'd be an awesome thing as well.
Yep, okay, great, thank you. And Gavin, I'm curious as to where your inspiration and motivation comes from.
My inspiration and motivation comes from, because I work in outdoor ed, I work for an organisation and their mission statement's inspiring Australians. And I really love getting out in the bush and seeing kids come from, you know, mostly an urban environment, usually quite a well-off environment, and get out in the bush and be a place apart, get away from all the electronics, get away from the hustle and bustle of the city and really appreciate the wild, being out in the wilderness, being, you know, having to look after yourself and, I don't know, I guess appreciating not having all the modern conventions of life. And just seeing that and spending time out in the wilderness. Like I did a hike in November and it was 26 days or 680 kilometres all by myself out in the Australian Alps, and it was absolutely magic. And seeing those places and wanting to preserve them, that really gives me a lot of drive to do that. And I just want to make sure that in the future there's still going to be those places. Like it's, yeah, climate change is a real threat, and I really want to make sure that we're doing something about it. So like maybe even I will have a future, like when I'm 80, 90, not let alone my kids. People always talk about future generations. We need to make change right now.
And what kind of support do you have when you face a challenge? Who backs you up? Who's behind the scenes?
Well, predominantly it's by myself out on the road, day-to-day sort of stuff, like breakdowns and making things work. But I do have a whole heap of support as a really big sort of, I guess, last effort option, and that's Jess and James, the co-founders of Beards On. They've been absolutely wonderful putting me up and helping me out, so they're my main backup support. Obviously I have my parents, but they're down in Victoria, so they're going to be if it really gets bad. But also people along the way are very, very supportive. I've been staying with hospitality exchanges like Warm Showers and Couch Surfing. They've been so supportive. Everyone posting on social media. There's been a few different campaigners who I'm campaigning for, like Frontline Action on Coal in the Maules Creek mine, Whitehaven's Maules Creek mine I mentioned before. They've been really supportive in spreading the word. Knitting Nanas Against Gas, another protest group against the coal seam gas. They've been wonderful as well, helping out, spreading the word and supporting as well. And also everyone that's donated, because it's going to go to a really good cause.
So by now, if you had one piece of advice to someone just starting out, what would it be?
I'd say it's really easy to get caught up in all the negativity that surrounds it, all the doom and gloom stuff. And yeah, I think it's just really positive to stay optimistic and keep going, because you know we're all in this mess together. We've all created it. We're all humans. All our forebears are responsible for it, and we're responsible for it in our own way. So just stay optimistic and yeah, just keep trying, because if you don't try, there's not going to be any change. And you know.
A barrier for people wanting to become change makers lies on the difficulty of financially supporting themselves and their projects. What would be your advice?
My advice for that would be, I guess it's not very helpful advice, but just go for it. Like I worked for 2.5 years, so this opportunity to come and take about a month and a bit off work, and you just have to go for it. You just have to really devote yourself to it, save up financially and just work your way around it. Like so far I've spent $3 on food. That's obviously pretty radical. I've been dumpster diving, collecting food from all over the place, eating off roadside stalls, but it is totally achievable, and you just have to have a really good drive and go for it. Obviously be a bit smart. It's all part of trying to live with a little bit less. Yeah, that's my main advice. Just do that, just go for it. Don't relegate it to the if-onlys, because, you know what I mean, if you keep going if only, it's never going to come about.
That's great advice. Let's imagine for a moment that you're in a position of power, like a mayor or a minister. What policies would you put in place?
I reckon I'd be completely overwhelmed at first, but I think up the top of my priorities would obviously be instigating something to do with climate change, promoting the renewable energy technologies, trying to cut down carbon emissions to a suitable level. You know, like Australia's really quite backwards on that at the moment in terms of their carbon policies, which is a bit silly. But yeah, I'd try and focus on that. Try and focus on, I guess, spreading the word about what you can do yourself, all the small things that we can do as citizens of Australia to cut down and make the world a much nicer place. And then it'd sort of be followed closely by the humanitarian issues that are going on at the moment. But yeah, it's another kettle of fish altogether.
That'll make great change.
Yeah.
So, Gavin, what's your forecast for the future in the areas you work on? What do you think the efforts of people will be focusing on to create greater change in the following years?
Well, I think at the moment, sort of the current environmental policies of the government and the way the government's going supporting the top end of town is really about to, I guess, I think they might fall on their own swords, so to speak, at the moment in terms of development. So I think that's going to be a pretty big catalyst for quite a bit of change. I think the main thing people are going to focus on is starting at a really, I guess I'm not sure how to say it, but an educational level, maybe through schools, startups from the bottom, because you know what I mean? The old adage, if you can't teach old dogs new tricks, it's really important to educate future generations and really empower them to take control and realise that they can be an agent of change. I think that would be the main avenues people will focus on as well as obviously developing new, safer technologies and ways to deal with the mess we have at the moment.
And finally, Gavin, how do you envision your legacy?
I don't hope like individually to have too much of a legacy, but I really hope I can be part of a period of change, like look back on it and say, look, this is when Australians really stood up and, you know, took control of what their governments were doing with the world, took control of what's happening in the world. Well, not control, but took responsibility for their own actions and really stood up and said, like, this is not what I want for my children, it's not what I want for future generations. I want to leave this world in a better place. I want to leave this world a much healthier place and improve what's going on.
Just to finalise, is there anything else that I haven't asked you that you would like to add?
Online I have a Facebook presence. My ride's called Barambie to Byron, BOORAMBYTO Byron, Barambie to Byron, Byron Bay. That's where I'm ending my ride. And yeah, that's on Facebook, so facebook.com/. And that's going really well. It's a really good way for people to post their messages and share stuff about what their thoughts, feelings, opinions are, to spread the word as well. So it's really important if you get on there and share it, that'd be wonderful. Also linked to that, we have a GoFundraise account. I'm trying to raise $1,500 for Beards On, the charity that I'm writing for, which you'll hear from soon, old charitable organisation. Yeah, I'd just like to thank the groups that have been involved. There's been quite a few, mostly Knitting Nanas Against Gas for helping knit my shorts, the Frontline Action on Coal and the Lock the Gate campaign up in Gloucester that I'm supporting. They've been really supportive and really elemental in the change that we need to see in Australia.
Right.
Excellent.
Yeah, well, Gavin, thank you again for this amazing conversation and for your generosity sharing this inside your journey with me.
Yeah.
I wish you all the success on your current project.
Yeah.
And congratulations on the fantastic work you're doing.
Thank you very much, Marissa.
Yeah, I'm sure the world would be a much better place if we have more Gavins like you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.